Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We're just waiting for a few more minutes as we see others joining the meeting. We appreciate you all being here. We are here to unite and to respond and inform you about this unfortunate trend of social media threats that's going around the country. We want to help families, students, and staff in our community feel safe. And to have a conversation about what are the things that we can control, that it could be how we keep our schools safe, what we do to communicate with our families, what we cannot control, the social media, the internet, the spread of fear, the spread of anxiety, which is what's causing around the country. So we're here. I want to thank the panel for being here today to talk and respond to the questions and concerns that we received from all of you as you did your RSVP form. Thank you for taking the time to do that. First, to my left, I have Joe Helms. He's our Director for School Safety for Tucson Unified. We have Superintendent Dr. Gabriel Trujillo, Superintendent of Tucson Unified. We have Sergeant David Hill from the Tucson Police Department and Captain Cindy Hepto from the Tucson Police Department. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so we'll start again, Dr. Trujillo. Your message, please.
Yeah, I think the question was the request to explain the kind of threats that we're facing as a district and you know, what makes them so difficult. But before the audio came cut out, I just want to thank all of our parents primarily who are watching this. I know this is very, very scary, these types of incidents. And I just want to thank you for your support and for sticking in there with us. Our job here is to bring clarity and confidence, not just in terms of what's happening here, but what we're doing to do our best to respond. In terms of the kinds of threats that we're facing, they are social media threats. And they are threats that specifically reference firearms and shooting up schools and really shooting up school personnel. And the reason why these threats are so difficult is they're, number one, they're scary in nature. Even in this case, as we pretty much determined that these threats are low risk and low credibility and have actually identified individuals that have perpetrated these postings, they're scary. And they present a difficulty to the district because these social media postings are done outside of the school day, outside of the authorization and the supervision of our staff, and they're personal devices that are being used outside of the school in the district. So we literally have no lead time, no warning when they appear. And we really count on our partnership with the Tucson Police Department in terms of working with us to determine the level of severity of these threats. So they've been very, very difficult to be able to address.
Thank you so much.
We can't hear nothing.
Our next question is for you. Families immediately concerned with safety. Could you break down the safety protocols that we have at Tucson Unified that we have in place in what would happen in an event of a real threat?
Sure. You know, I think it's important to say, first of all, that obviously our goal is to always prevent anything from happening. Then our second goal is to mitigate it, you know, if a crisis were to occur, you know, to mitigate that as much as possible. And we do that through our emergency response protocols that we've enacted. Those follow you know, ones that are nationally recognized through I Love You Guys Foundation. And basically it's a lockdown, secure, a shelter in place, or an evacuate. The lockdowns are ones we reserve only for those extremely critical situations where there's a life-threatening event taking place on our campus. The secures are something we have to implement a little bit more. That's when something is nearby our campus, but we want to make sure that it does not come on. And then the shelter in place is, you know, we recently saw about a year ago a crash on the I-10 where some dangerous fumes were released in the air. So not necessarily a threat to the physical harm or somebody committing harm to one of our students or staff, but actually just a concern that we have to stay inside and ride out that storm. And then the last one is the evacuation. Those are the ones that most people are most familiar with. Those are the ones we enact when we have fire drills and so on and so forth. That's getting people outside of our campuses. Now the difference is, again, lockdowns, the most critical ones. Those we're locking all of our doors. We're making sure people don't come inside. And we're also getting everybody out of sight as much as possible. The secure, again, is just securing our perimeter. So classes go on as usual inside as much as possible, but we're making sure whatever may be nearby doesn't come onto our campus and negatively affect the educational entity of the day.
Thank you. Have the recent threats warranted any increase or change of any of our safety protocols?
No, I wish I could say that this was necessarily uncommon. Now it's uncommon to the volume that we've seen in the last week or so, that we've seen this trend. But this is something, we have some, we have some reps behind us, and we've had to deal with these in the past. And we look at them on a case-by-case basis. And that is done through the cooperation of the Tucson Police Department or the Pima County Sheriff's Department or other law enforcement entities. And we basically take these, we look at the individual threat that may have been presented. We evaluate that to see the level of seriousness, the level of concern it is, and we react appropriately. That may be, we may have to initiate a secure as we evaluate it. That may be just an increased presence, or we may be able to determine that there is no threat and we can just, go about our day as normal.
Oh, thank you so much. One of the biggest concerns is we don't know what's going on. We don't know if it's a real threat or not a real threat. So this for you too. How are these threats that come out on social media? How are they investigated? And if there's any reason to worry when they're found low credible or low risk?
4 years ago, the Tucson Police Department saw some serious issues with dealing with threats, and they created the Threat Mitigation Unit. And one of the primary responsibilities of this unit is to investigate threats against the schools. We look at these threats as serious, and our job is to try to determine the credibility of it, and if we can prosecute that case. But our ultimate is to make sure that the school, the staff, the students, and everybody who's around the school is safe. So when we look at these, we start with just talking to people, finding out information as much as we can about the social media threat in these cases. And then we start working with the social media companies, trying to get additional information. And as that develops leads, we then go forward and try to contact and locate the person or persons who created the social media threat, and then they'll be interviewed. To the second part of your question, is there a reason to still worry when these threats are found? And I'm gonna, say more of a low credibility on that, or low risk, is we try to do is give you as much information, the public and the school itself, to say, hey, this is what we know, and how, hopefully this will help you plan. And then school safety and the school can work together to determine how they want to handle the security of the school. What we try to do is provide as much information as we can through our PIO system and to the schools, so that they can alert their public and they can determine the best course. And everyone we get, we investigate as best as we can. Unfortunately, sometimes there's just not enough information to follow up on every single lead.
So in this series that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks, is it all related to the same nationwide threat that we've been seeing? Is it the same?
So yes, approximately about 2 weeks ago, after the Georgia shooting, we noticed to start seeing social media threats appearing. They actually started in Georgia, and we saw a couple from the Georgia area, Cobb County being one. So that's the Atlanta area, and then we started seeing them move across the United States, and then we also had a few pop up from Nevada that popped up in that area. So we were able to identify those quickly. We work with we don't work just with inside the city of Tucson, with our Tucson partners, with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, Oro Valley Police Department, Marana, Sarita, the local partners, but we also work with the state partners through the active system. We talk with my partners in the Phoenix Valley, and we are able to, if we see a post that was made outside the state of Arizona, but now is appearing here, we can go through those systems and identify those. About a week ago, we started seeing posts slowly coming up from the Phoenix Valley area. And then over the last few days, we've had a bombardment from the Tucson area. And these are posts that are being created by students here locally that that have been affecting the schools.
Which is the same threats that we've been seeing, just multiplying into.
They're similar in nature.
Similar.
Yes, they're similar in nature, but not the same. They have different wording or different pictures or different modifications, but they're all similar in nature, same content.
Thank you so much. Dr. Trujillo, even if these threats are found not to be credible, parents and students as well as staff still worry about attending school. Will the school, what is the Tucson Unified District doing about that? And is there a possibility for a virtual option? Our viewers want to know if that's a possibility. And if they decide we don't want to send our kids to school because we're afraid, would that be an absence?
Well, no, I think this is a great question. Number one, we never challenge a parent's right to excuse their kid from school for any reason. That is parental authority, and a parent will never be judged for keeping their kid out of school and following the appropriate attendance reporting procedures that we have in the district. We love our kids. We want to see them every single day. But as the school district, we always will defer to parental authority for matters of excusing the kids. I will say that if the absence does get to 10 days, then we are obligated to meet with the parent and to discuss continued enrollment. There is state statute around our ability to have students enrolled in the district that. We're good?
Waiting room, we have 5 people.
Okay, we're back on.
I've been off and, okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're gonna go back to Dr. Trujillo talking about parents that decide not to send their kids.
Sure. Before the video feed cut out, a parent's right to excuse their kid from school, that falls under parental authority. We don't challenge that. Our parents have the right to excuse their kids from school for any reason. We love our kids. We want to see them here every single day, but certainly we'll work with our parents who, for any reason, have to excuse their kids from school. I will say, though, the state of Arizona does have statute that does not allow us to keep kids enrolled in school for 10 consecutive days in which they're absent. We would be required to drop them from the district. I assure all of you watching, if parents' fears got to that point where they're keeping their kids out 10 days, we would pull you in and meet with you and talk about some of our alternative options that might help alleviate some of the fear and the anxiety, like our online school Tuva. We would certainly talk about that option in terms of if you felt safer in an online environment. We would talk about some of our smaller school environments as well to try to help you find an enrollment option that might work for you and address some of the anxiety that you would be feeling around some of these threats. Secondly, the second part of this question was around a virtual option that would be available on a daily basis. I do think that that's a great suggestion. We don't have that capacity right now. We have a standalone online school for all grade levels known as the Tucson Unified Virtual Academy, but that's not available on a daily basis. That's more you have to register and sign up, and that becomes your school throughout the semester and throughout the school year. So we can certainly work with our team and start looking at what a potential option might be for the short term for parents who may not be fully comfortable having their kids return to school, even if threats are found to be low risk, low credibility, and not posing a threat to the campus.
Thank you so much. We're gonna, this question I would like both you, Joe, and you to answer. Any tips on how to recognize threats and how to report possible, if it's they see it, how do they report it?
It's hard to identify what somebody would construe as a threat. Basically, if you read it, what would an average person, if they look at that and they say that's concerning because that, somebody could interpret that as a threat or a concern for somebody's life or well-being or safety, then that should be reported. I guess I would just want to follow that up with, we're asking, please, please, please do not share that. That's where we're kind of seeing what we're seeing currently, take a screenshot of that and then immediately report it. Who you report it to. We just want to report it, right? We want kids to report that to their parents. We want the parents or their guardians to report that to the school, the police department, and school safety. Anytime it's an immediate threat, though, obviously, we want the police department involved in that. Maybe they can speak more to that.
So just call 911, better safe than sorry.
Absolutely. It comes down to if you see something, say something. Really, it's very simple. kind of adding on to what you said, if there's a specific school named, a date, a time, a mechanism for carrying something out, that's very concerning. Of course, there's more vague threats that you get that, you know, are a little bit more obscure. And if you're on the fence and you're not sure, absolutely report it. If it's something that's more immediate, call 911. That is your fastest route for us to triage and get a patrol response and start addressing it. Because if it's something that we need to take action on immediately that's happening right now, we'd rather you report it to 911 than anywhere else.
Do we want to assure parents and staff that if a 911 call comes in saying, we see this threat, that the authorities are gonna take the seriousness and the priority that it deserves?
Absolutely. So there's a priority system to the 911 call center, right? So most people know if you call and report a burglary, that's a lower threat than there's a man with a gun at a school. So the man with a gun outside of school would be a priority 1. Your burglary is going to be a priority 4, and it may take a while. It's going to take a while for a police response. So it really matters if it's an obscure it's an obscure type of a threat, if you will, that doesn't name a school, a time, a date, a mechanism for carrying it out, then that's probably not going to receive, it's not going to receive the same response as at 2 o'clock today at Amphi High School, this is going to happen. So there's a big difference in how we're going to respond to that. And if it's more obscure, maybe it's a week from now, then we can dig into social media more and try and figure out who's making the post and that type of thing.
Thank you so much. Dr. Trujillo, attendees noted that they want more transparency from communications from the district. There's major complaints from recent events, including that message is too vague, that it's not sent in a timely manner, and it's not being sent to everyone. Will there be changes made on how and when families and staff receive communications on any threats?
Yeah, the communication piece is definitely the hardest piece, and we can always get better at communication. We can always communicate faster. We can always look at different mechanisms to get to our families and our community members quicker. But I will say what makes this so difficult is the nature of these threats being based in social media, in which they can appear at any time, create a significant challenge for the district in the following ways. You can literally have a social media threat to a particular school or a group of schools appear at like Sunday at 5 o'clock. By 5:10, that threat has gone viral to thousands of parents. By 5:20, they're expecting a response from the school district. The problem with that is we have a partnership with the Tucson Police Department. We have to let our law enforcement officials do their jobs. And in order for them to do their due diligence, they need time. The threat mitigation unit, who's been outstanding in this particular situation, and in the past, every time we've had these types of situations, they need the time to dig deep, do their work, do their jobs, and be able to give us a valid assessment of the level of severity of the threat that's been posted. Sometimes that can take several hours. And so we're asking for our parents just to understand that process. And if we're not able to jump out immediately, like in the example I just gave, it's not because we're sitting on information. We're giving our law enforcement partners time to do their jobs and to be able to really dig in and investigate the severity of the threat that's been posted. Once we hear from them, then we are able to loop out and be able to communicate with all of you. I think sometimes what we do, to speak to one of the fair critiques, and I do believe it is a fair critique, and it's feedback that I've received very well and we're going to work on as a team. I think what we try to do sometimes in the interim, while we're waiting for the Tucson Police Department's threat mitigation unit to really come forward with some conclusive findings on the severity of these threats, we try to send out a message in the meantime that might be too vague and might be creating a little bit more anxiety than what's necessary. And that's something that I think we can take back to our team and we can work on. In terms of updating our email addresses and making sure that we're current and that they're reaching all of our parents, absolutely, we've got to do that a little bit better. We should probably have more efficient systems in-house with our student information management system to make sure that we're reaching out to all of our parents and guardians and loved ones, making sure that we have the most accurate phone numbers when we're texting out informational messages, that we're giving you a chance to update your emails, when we're putting out informational briefings, especially on potential school threats. We know that at the time that we're trying to communicate a vital update to you around a social media threat to a school, that's not the first time we should be finding out that we have the wrong email address. So that's on us. And that's something that we're going to make a commitment to making sure that we're a little bit better at. In terms of our internal messaging, we certainly want to make sure that we are communicating effectively with all of our employees who have to face our students. That's important as well. They have to give our students the accurate information as they're in the classroom. We want to make sure that we have platforms and methods that do that a little bit better. We can always get better in these situations. I also know that there was part of this question, I think, addressed, why wouldn't we do school by school communication in terms of if a particular social media threat was posted for school A, B, and C, why wouldn't we just communicate with school A, B, and C? What we've seen is the rapid and viral nature of the way that these threats can spread from school to school to school. It's easy for us, it's easier for the district, and I think more effective, more transparent, to be able to communicate with the district as a whole, because chances are a threat that was posted for school A, B, or C will very quickly spread to schools D, E, F, and G a little bit later on. So, and at the very least, it's always better in our world to over communicate than to under communicate and have the appearance that we're not effective in our communication efforts.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Joe, attendees also want to know if school safety undergoes active shooter simulations and drills, and would like to know if the district is going to prevent an active shooter situation and if we have any evacuation plans.
I guess the answer to that would be yes.
Mhm.
Schools themselves, the students and the staff, they don't actively participate in active shooter drills. Again, like I spoke with earlier, our protocols call for a lockdown, and we do practice those on at least a quarterly basis at every site. When we do those, we have school safety personnel to verify that they're going through the motions and they're doing it appropriately. We don't want them actually directly involved in like a scenario-based active shooter drill. We don't do those within schools. However, there's school safety personnel in partnership with law enforcement. We do, the school safety personnel do active shooter drills and how we're going to respond to those. But again, we don't ask, the students and staff to engage in that type. We understand that during a critical situation, we just want them out of sight behind a locked door, and that has been proven to be the safest place for them during that kind of situation. And I'm sorry, second part of the question?
And do we have evacuation plans? In
Yes,
place?
so every school, every site has multiple evacuation sites. We don't plan on just one because, we don't know what the situation's going to arise. We have multiple fallbacks on those. Those are all based on our site-based emergency response plans. Those are provided to the administrators. We provide direct training on what those are and how to implement them. And then our school safety staff, anytime we have to implement something like that, is on site to help navigate those situations.
Great, thank you so much. And the question is for Tucson Police Department, and we thank you for the partnership and for being here. Can you tell our audience, this is a question that we received several times, what are you doing to support TUSD when we are receiving these threats?
Well, thank you very much. That actually started years ago, and it started with a partnership between the Tucson Police Department, the Threat Mitigation Unit, and School Safety. And over those few years, we've have a very strong partnership working together. And with the open communication lines, Mr. Hollins can contact me anytime of the day. I know I can do the same. And having those open lines allows us to recognize the needs of TUSD, which is different from other school districts, and then also allows us to, if we need to adjust and support them in different ways, we can. What we try to do the best is on these threats, and with the social media threats right now especially, is having open lines of communication, letting them know as soon as we can. hey, we have this threat. This is what we're doing, and this is what we've seen, and what we're going, how's we're going forward. The different parts of the investigation. So TUSD is aware of what's happening. And then we always let them know toward the end of it, we'll say, yes, this is the outcome of the threat. As much as with that is, we're also trying to do this with the other schools and districts, and we have found it very effective. We have and being able to share information between districts and between law enforcement has been extremely effective. We've made several arrests, and it's due to the partnership between all the districts and the law enforcement within Pima County.
Thank you. I love that because it shows how we're all in this together. It doesn't matter if you're law enforcement and which agency you represent. It doesn't matter if you're in a school district and which one you represent. Is the same need, is the same threat, is the same, frustration, and working together is how we're gonna help with this. All right, going back to you, Joe. How are staff and students being prepared at a school level? Are schools conducting the drills for safety and knowledge? I know you mentioned that a little bit earlier, but if you can go a little bit more in detail on these core plans that trainings that you do.
Sure. We do that for all new employees when they come on. We have part of their onboarding process. We provide them with the initial training. And then annually, at least annually, we get out there and either myself or my emergency managers or the 10 units we have on during the day. We go out to the various sites, we provide them that refresher training on an ongoing basis. For the students, we're pretty excited. We're actually going to be rolling out a video in the very near future, providing them with some of those insights so they can be better prepared. Right now, we rely on those teachers. We provide that training to the teachers. The expectation is that the teachers will subsequently provide that specific training to their students. We're hoping that this video that was actually developed in-house and will be shown to the students across the district will kind of help reinforce that.
Thank you so much. Dr. Cecilia, what happens to students who make threats? And this is going to be a split answer. First, we'll go with Dr. Trujillo, then we'll go into some police. How can we remind students about the severity of making false reports and or failing to report something?
Yeah, my piece of the answer is very simple. There is absolutely no tolerance for this kind of threat, this kind of chaos, this kind of disruption, this kind of fear that results from these type of threats. A student that we catch making these kinds of threats goes to an immediate expulsion in the Tucson Unified School District.
As simple as that. TPD, can you tell us about the severity of the complications that can come after being identified as somebody doing these threats?
So we look at it as in three parts. There is a student could possibly be arrested. There's a felony charge and a misdemeanor charge that we can use, and it depends on how it affects the school. We also look at there's a school involvement part. We want the child to be identified so the school can also address it. And if services are needed or additional, because there are times where they may need additional services through mental health or educational services that can also be provided by the school. And the last is with the parents. We meet with the parents that we arrest. We give them educational material. We talk to them. We sit down with them. Because one of the big things that we really try to help the parents understand is it is a lot of their responsibility to help monitor their child's social media. It's not, I just give you a phone, have fun. It's your responsibility to watch what your child's doing on the phone and on the internet and in social media. So we do a lot of educational aspects of this. So we try to do it in a three-prong approach, and not in every case will all three hit, but we really want to work with each part of our partners on this.
Thank you so much. Dr. Trujillo, will the district consider implementing stricter safety measures on site, such as metal detectors, clear backpacks, surveillance on officers, etc.? All right. Hello, everyone. We apologize for the technical issues we're having with audio. We were going to go back to Dr. Trujillo. He's going to start again with the question about, no? Oh, okay. The question of what we're doing in terms of more security, metal detectors, clear backpacks, surveillance on officers.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm sorry for the technical difficulties we're having. And just to kind of recap, my answer to your question. Some of this, which is a little bit more policy driven in terms of, sort of a change in overall policy when we're talking about clear backpacks or metal detectors, that's going to be more in the hands of the governing board and what our school board sees as a collective vision for safety and security in the district. But there are some other things that we're doing already as an administration and that we're getting ready to implement. I think first and foremost, when I take a look at what our most impressive safety measure is, it's a district that has Arizona's only armed school safety force. I'm very proud of this team. We have a school safety department comprised of school safety officers that are former law enforcement officials, the majority of them former police officers. They are exceptionally well trained in emergency crisis response. They're amazing in conflict resolution and management. They're very responsive to both our school communities and the community at large. And the way that Director Hallams has our school safety officers situated around the district, they're able to respond to a crisis situation at just about any one of our schools within minutes. So I'm very, very proud to be able to offer that to you as parents as one of our primary school safety measures. The $480 million bond passed by the voters in last November, that is going to do wonderful things for the district with regard to strengthening our safety and security measures. We're going to see updated fencing and gating in a lot of sections of our schools. We're going to be going wrought iron around some of our classroom buildings and our administrative areas. We're going to be going 8-foot fencing in a lot of areas with brand new chain link product. Every school district or every school in the district is going to receive modernized video surveillance camera systems that are really going to make us more effective in securing our campus communities. And then we're also looking at Windows security film for windows, classroom windows and administrative windows and office windows across the district. And for our windows that are more public facing, that are facing streets and open areas, we're going to be looking at a security film that is pretty much bulletproof. And then on the interior of our campuses with classroom windows, we're going to be looking at window film, security film that's going to be pretty much shatter resistant. So in both instances, any intruder, whether trying to shoot their way in or smash their way in, it's going to take them a significant amount of time to bust through this new product. And what that's designed to do is to give our teachers in the classroom or our administrators and our staff members in front offices the precious gift of time so that our law enforcement officials and our school safety team can respond accordingly to threats. So we're very, very excited about these enhanced safety and security measures that will be coming soon. I will say that the shift from what the traditional public school was when they were first built here in the Tucson Unified School District in the 30s and 40s as open spaces, as spaces that are welcoming to the community, as community hubs and true neighborhood schools. Unfortunately, that was another time and place. Now in the age, the post-Columbine age of school shootings, we're now at this uncomfortable place where we're having to harden these targets that were never designed to be hardened. And that's a community conversation. And I think that that's definitely a conversation that our governing board is always having to navigate as they decide that balance between maintaining the spirit of a neighborhood school, but hardening the target enough where we're able to keep our students and staff safe.
Thank you so much. We're gonna skip a couple of questions and then come back to give Dr. Trujillo a little breather. We're gonna go with both of you. Can school safety be in all the schools all the time? Or can TPD, or in this case also sometimes Sheriff's Department, provide more officers to the schools to be present all the time?
No, and one of our big focuses in school safety has been kind of developing a culture of safety. And that's why we do so much training to our staff on an ongoing basis. To your point, we can't be everywhere. The police department or police officers can't be everywhere at any given time to ensure that that area is safe and secure. So we rely on our staff, we rely on our students, we rely on everybody. To the captain's point earlier, to see something, say something. It's extremely important. If you see somebody propping open a door, we want them to close that door. all these things that we're continually trying to reinforce across the district to again create that culture of safety will mean that we'll have more like better, safer classrooms for people to just focus on getting a quality education.
Which is the main point. Anything you would like to add?
No, very well said. I wish that we could have an officer at every school, but that's just not possible in this day and age. We do have an officer assigned for each division of our 4 divisions that is assigned to these schools as a whole. So they alternate through the different schools. And so if there's a particular problem at a school, then they will deploy to that school for that day. But we certainly don't have enough resources for that.
Thank you so much. Okay, going back to you, Dr. Trujillo. What is being done to address students' social emotional well-being? How can we help our students understand what is going on, what is happening, and how to feel safe to be at school?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we work with our staff, particularly our counselors and our social workers. Number one, we don't have enough of them. So they do absolutely wonderful work with our students. But we really do need, I think, to really start having more structured debriefing opportunities for our students. These threats can be very traumatic for them. They can be very scary. Once a threat is mitigated and once a threat has been deemed something as low risk or low credit or having low credibility, and we're able to move on past the fear and the anxiety, I think it's important that we do a better job of having structured debriefing opportunities for students, creating spaces where students can have more of a support group experience with our counselors and our social workers to be able to navigate some of the anxiety that they feel around these threats. I will say overall, and this is more just, I know I'm probably banging the drum here and preaching to the choir, but schools by their nature, by the way that they're funded, by the way that they're structured, and the policies that govern schools, really never outfitted schools to be effective at addressing mental and behavioral health. Schools have always been charged primarily with academic content, literacy, numeracy, science, technology, math, transportation, food services. Now the societal need is that schools take a primary role in addressing socio-emotional health, mental illness, emotional health. We've never been funded to do so. And the legislature has never seen fit to fund our schools adequately to take this challenge on. We still deal with the challenge of counselor ratios that are way too high. In many cases, our counselors are dealing with one counselor for every 500 to 600 students. We are struggling to get licensed clinical social workers or master's level social workers to fill all of our vacancies. And we're very proud of the partnerships that we have with organizations like Casa de los Niños or Intermountain that actually act as force multipliers and come in and partner with us in working with our students in crisis. So I think we can always do a little bit better at debriefing with our students when these traumatic events, these threats do happen, and continue to advocate at the legislative level for better funding, more funding for access to licensed clinical practitioners inside of every school.
Thank you so much. For both of you, whoever wants to jump in and answer this question. Attendees also showed concern for current safety measures at school sites. They mentioned lack of identification before buzzing anybody in, inadequate fencing, and the lack of school monitors. What can the district do to make these points better?
So I talked about what our school communities can expect from the bond, right? So in the previous question, better fencing, better gating on the way. Bulletproof security shields for your windows coming soon. Video surveillance systems absolutely coming soon. We've got a school safety team, but we can always do better at training. We can always do better. I know a few years ago, we put in the buzzers, if you will, the keyless entry systems in which our staff are in full control of coming into those buildings of people that are coming on to visit. Absolutely, we need to make sure that identification is required. And that's something we certainly can work with our principals on. I will say, having visited a number of our schools, I will take up for some of our employees that there are times where I see, for example, the well-known campus volunteer that knows everybody on the campus, and that is a regular fixture at that school and has a security clearance card and legitimately works at that school, get buzzed right in without showing any kind of identification. I understand a parent walking up sees that, doesn't necessarily know that, and only sees that an unidentified person just walked into a school. So in a lot of cases, I just think it's a miscommunication, but we want to get into the general practice of having everybody show ID. That's obviously something that we can get stronger at. Monitors, again, it's going to come down to funding, and our school board, our administration, there's no shortage of critical things that we need to fund. We have to fund teacher salaries. We have to make sure that our bus drivers have a livable wage and that we're competitive in getting enough drivers. We have to invest in buses, books, buildings, HVAC, electrical systems, plumbing. We got to make sure that we're paying our HVAC techs a wage that's competitive so we don't lose them. And oh yeah, we have to pay for all of the extracurriculars and the transportation for all of our teams and our performance arts groups. So it's just another challenge that we have not been adequately funded for by this legislature in terms of being able to have the budgetary bandwidth to be able to put the monitors on every school the way that we should.
Thank you so much. Another question that we had from our audience is, what happens with schools that are nearby a school that receives a threat? For example, we have let's say we have Pueblo. Pueblo receives a threat. What happens with the schools in the vicinity? Do they also get notified, or do any kind of the protocols to go and secure? What can you add to that?
Well, like I said earlier, all threats are evaluated individually, right? So it's going to depend on the nature of the threat. Is there any specificity to her? To what the captain said earlier, is it, this school, this time, so on and so forth. And then proximity, right? Some schools are closer than others so it's evaluated. We always do share information. We want to be as proactive as possible, especially when it comes to threats and not just social media threats, but any concerns surrounding the school. So yeah, that's one of our first options. Obviously, we want to respond to that school first and address the situation. However, we have subsequent resources go to those other schools to ensure that if something is going on in this, again, it doesn't spill over.
Yeah.
But then also just to give that situational awareness to that campus so they know what's going on and they can kind of start to prepare for something in case something were to come up.
Thank you. Dr. Trujillo, going into the usage of cell phones. So the code says no uses of cell phone in the school, but parents want to know, can my child use a phone when they're scared or they know something is happening? Can they have access to that phone? And what if that phone has been taken away or is in one of the bags that are insecure? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I have my own thoughts on cell phones, and you can probably imagine as a school administrator where I probably land on cell phones. I won't bring that into the conversation. I understand they are part of our reality. But here's what I'll say about cell phones. Most of our schools, I will say all of our schools are very permissive of cell phones on breaks and during lunches and during passing periods. All of our schools have the expectation that cell phones are often put away during instructional time. Some of our schools, like Sabino, actually have the cell phone device storage boxes that I'm a big fan of, and I think actually help kids focus and concentrate a little bit more on instruction. But to get back to the question, if a student feels scared, if a student feels like they need to get in touch with their family at any point in time, at any point they can use a school phone. We have school phones everywhere. They're in every classroom. They're at the front office. If it's during an instructional period and they really do need to communicate with the family member, there's nothing that stops them from getting a pass and going to the office and using a school phone. Otherwise, they have access to their cell phones during passing periods, during lunch, during before school, during after school. So there's enough points during the day where our students have access to their phones where they can message or they can call their parents directly. But like I said, if it's actually that much of an emergency where they need to leave the math class, the algebra class, the English class, we can certainly issue a pass to the office and you can make your call from the school phone.
Thank you. We're getting close to the end of our time. So I want to open it up to, both of you, Sergeant and Captain, if there is a message that you want to give to our families and our staff and our community members, to feel better and to feel more secure and to feel that we are doing the job as educators and as law enforcement.
Sure, so I would just like to reiterate, if you see something, say something. That's gonna be your best course of action, and we very much value our relationship with TUSD. That is the only way that we're going to progress through this very complicated matter. So we are completely invested in our school systems and our children and protecting them. And so our threat mitigation unit, during periods of like national trends like we're going through right now, they 24/7 are working through the problems and trying to figure out how to mitigate. And each time something like this happens, it has a unique set of challenges, right? So you're trying to navigate through this particular situation where students are reposting, for example, which is it just muddies the waters and makes it very confusing to try and sift through what is an actual threat and what isn't. And so again, please tell your children not to repost, take a screenshot. If you see something you're concerned about, say something, call 911, report it to a school official or your parents. We're here to support you and continue this amazing relationship we have.
Thank you so much. Anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody again, for the trust that they have in Tucson Unified School District to provide that education for the students. And know that we're working day and night to ensure that we can make it as safe environment as possible for the students. I also want to thank those that voted for the bond. That is going to help us significantly moving forward, to provide the safest environment possible that we can. So again, those kids can come and just focus on getting a good education and advancing their lives.
Great, thank you so much. Dr. Trujillo, last.
Yeah, number one, we take every single threat, whether it's social media or otherwise, we take it seriously. We investigate every single threat as if it is a serious imminent threat. With that being said, how can you help us in the world of social media? Please check your kids' devices, work with them, ask questions. Hey, what are you looking at on social media? Have you seen anything disturbing today? What are the platforms that you're using? I think that is extremely important, that our parents are aware of all of these different platforms and the kind of content that is on these platforms. I think number two is just what you've heard from our panelists today, is educating your kids. What constitutes a threat? Anything that is threatening violence against an individual, against a school, against a place, against a person should be immediately reported, along with anything that's posted that is bullying or harassing in nature, contains hate speech, or any type of imminent threat to a person, a building, a place. All of that should be reported immediately. And as the captain said, please do not repost. All that does is to help these problematic and violent communications go viral. We face the exact same challenges that the police department does with regard to the reposting and the sharing of videos and violent content. If that could be the one unified ask, it would be that. Please do not repost.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your attention and for your patience as we dealt with our technical issues tonight. We hope that this information was helpful, and we thank you for your support and cooperation. Have a great evening.